Welcome back to the Universal Method podcast, everyone. I'm your host, Ashton Winningham, and today I'm glad to have Kylee Winningham from Kylee Joy Photo joining me. Kylee, let's hear a quick introduction of your company.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me, Ashton. I am Kylee Joy, a wedding photographer in Las Vegas, Nevada. I have been shooting my Sony camera for about 2.5 years now, and I've been editing photos for Kylee Joy Photo for 6 years now. I love what I do, and I am so happy that I was able to find this niche at such a young age.
Nice. And what are some of your future goals coming up in this, next year, next 5 years? What is your goals looking like?
My main goal is to be able to expand to a point where my calendars are full in the right times of the month, obviously, and year as well for wedding seasons, and to hopefully be able to automate a few parts of my business to where I don't have to be putting so much time and effort into the back end of things. I also hope to be able to expand onto a point of outsourcing even photos themselves and taking the photos. I can already see myself working a lot harder and a lot longer for the things that I've come to. And so just to be able to automate and outsource those things is a huge goal of mine, but I'm happy to do it all by myself right now.
Got it. Okay. So thank you for the quick intro. Today, our topic is going to be how important is a social media or online presence to a business. So I'd like to start this off by just quickly reminding everyone, there's a big rave online right now about having social media and having a website and all this stuff. Your social media is not your whole company. And I feel like that's what a lot of people are now forsaking so that they can have this social media presence. Well, they're forgetting about their whole value of a company as a whole and their foundations as a company. So I just want to quickly talk about, what are some of the core values of your business?
Absolutely, yeah. I like what you said there about how your social media is not your business, because I know a lot of photographers who have very few followers on social media and they still make bank and do a really good job in the industry, and vice versa. So my values as a photographer are being able to provide value. So that is the main point. I want to make sure that people like what they're getting, the product that I have to sell to them, and that it provides value to them and to their lives and to their families, especially with wedding photos. That's the biggest day of most people's lives. And so being able to capture that is not only an honor, but it's also a privilege and a responsibility. And so that responsibility that I have to give them exactly what they want on their day while still staying true to my brand and my values as well is huge. And then another value that I have is the customer experience. This kind of ties into providing value for the customer, but making sure that my customers and clients never feel like they are alone or forgotten or left out at any point in my pipeline.
Right. And I would like to quickly, we can dive into this a whole lot more later, but I would like you to quickly touch on when someone is unhappy with your product, how do you treat that in your business?
Absolutely. That's a tough one. Honestly, I've had a lot of good luck as well as just extra work that I put into making sure that my clients are happy. But when on the off chance that they do become unhappy with their services, I do my best and my very best to fix that, and if it's unfixable, I will do my best to make amends with that person personally. So, for example, I recently went through this. It wasn't with a client, but it was actually with a associate shooter. I was being a second photographer for a birthday party, and I misunderstood some of the guidelines that the main photographer had given to me, and so the photos were not ideal and they did not match her style. And so she came back to me and told me this, and I said, okay, well, why don't we work something out, because there's nothing that I can do to change those photos. So instead of just giving you the raw photos, I'm going to edit those for you and make sure that they're in your style exactly how you want. And man, it took me a long time to get all of those looking perfect for her, but I wanted to make sure that there was no loose ends and no burnt bridges in that relationship. And now I have a great relationship with her, and it's a very professional one, and I'm really happy with the way that things turned out, and I'm glad that I repaired that.
Right. And I would add, like, even if you never decide to do business with her again, you stuck to your core values as a company, and now you're practicing that and putting that into play rather than just, rather than like some random online company who says they have all these values, but in reality, when you get the product, it's, it's garbage.
Absolutely.
Like this, and there's just one reason why I wanted to mention that, which is feedback loops are part of your customer experience, right? Yes. Feedback loops inside of that being like a subcategory of that. Those are really important for your core values as a company as well. So, obviously there's more to this. You have your goals as a company. Those are going to be what is a really important thing that you're holding to your company. And then also your teamwork and the people that you put around you, the way you treat those people, the way you teach them to treat your clients and all that. Mm-hmm. Your team is very important. You worked as an associate photographer, right? And
I still do.
Right. Yeah. So, and that's such a valuable experience just to be able to work as a team. And so, yeah, that's really important. And then obviously there are plenty of other values that actually build up your company. But just wanted to stress this, that, your social media is not your company. There are so many family businesses out there in the world right now who still haven't quite, quote unquote, caught up with the social media, explosion basically. But that's still okay as a business. You're not definitely not a failure of a business. There are so many businesses that are unseen and yet wildly successful, like you said, and successful, according to their values and goals, not just financially. So it's really important. So now that we reviewed, you have this established business based on goals, values, teamwork, all these things. Now what do you do? How do you grow? More specifically, my question would be, what have you done after building your foundation for your company that has helped you progress towards your goals?
Well, that's a perfect question for the topic of today's conversation. The biggest thing that I have done for my company is reaching out on social media and just presenting my work. Especially as a photographer, it's so easy because it feels like the platform was almost made for us. You can take photos for people, and your people who you've taken photos for can share those photos, and they can tag you and all these things. So it's just this perfect little network where it was almost undeniable to join that and be a part of that and just share what I've been able to do thus far. And so making that jump, I'm sure we'll talk about it more. It has been incredibly successful and just worlds apart from before I had joined social media.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I feel like that is such a key, this is really the topic that I wanted to dive into, is like social media is a tool. And this tool is super valuable for your company and in growing your company values and also being financially successful, right? We have so much opportunity on social media today, whether that be photography, where you as you describe it, it's the photos, it's a great platform to be able to expand. All sorts of types of companies can really find value in social media.
Any type, yeah.
Right. So what are the differences specifically you've seen in your company after you established an online presence? Like, what did it look like before, and now what's the after?
So as you had stated, I have been an associate photographer for my entire career. And so doing associate photography, I wasn't really always sure, like, are these my photos? Do I have the rights to them? Like, should I post them? But after figuring out those kinks and posting, my business has gone up so much. And I used to only get clients from my main shooter, who I was associates with. And now I've been getting more shoots on my own just from inquiries that have come from Instagram specifically. That's been my biggest one. But I've gotten a few on TikTok. Honestly, even a few people have come to me from Pinterest. And so, just a million more inquiries than I ever would have thought possible by literally just posting reels and TikToks and, cute little stuff of just what I like and sharing what I do.
Right. And, that really just says, business growth all over it. But are there any downsides that you've experienced? Is there any difficulties to navigating this social media side?
I would definitely say that if you are maybe not a person who has grown up in the generation of technology, it's definitely something that's harder to break into. Also, if you are somebody who is not constantly on your phone, if you're not an addict, good for you. But it is much harder to break into that scene without knowing all of the trends. And so I, thus far, have done all of my social media management on my own. And I do find it hard often to figure out the exact trends and figure out exactly what works for you and your business. The main thing that I've found helpful with that are the insights. So TikTok and Instagram both have these things called insights. They're for businesses on social media, and it will tell you things specific to your business. So it'll tell you what time of day that you post that gets the most engagement on your channel, or not really channel, but your platforms. And it will tell you the type of audience that you have, whether they're male or female, how old they are, where they live, obviously not exact locations, but these things have all really helped me refine my videos, and it's been a very useful tool, and it has sped up the process immensely.
Right. And I recall that we helped build you a site and everything and get you established in that way. So What was your approach to that when you were looking at, okay, I need a website, obviously, because a website is, it establishes so much credibility, and that's just, it's very similar to a social media channel, but much more accessible to the whole web, but also much less specific, right? So that's like one of your strategies when you're looking on going on social media is like, you don't want to just have Facebook. If you're a super professional business page, you would probably want to focus most of your efforts on LinkedIn and that kind of stuff. So when you're approaching website building, what was your thought process behind, choosing universal method, choosing someone else to do that work for you? What was your thought process?
Well, I had been trying to make my own website on my own since probably 2021, 2022.
Wow, okay.
And it was just not working for me. I went through a bunch of different platforms that were just super hard to use and super expensive, and I didn't want to waste my time with that. I wanted to make sure that I had something in place that looked professional. That was my main thing, but also was useful and was valuable to my clients as well as myself. And so when I found out that you would be able to do that for me, it was a no-brainer, honestly. And at the price that I got it at, I would do it again in a heartbeat. Since I've gotten my website, I definitely have gotten a lot better rapport with my clients, as well as just with myself, knowing that okay, this is an established business. I don't just work on social media, which social media is awesome and it does a lot for my brand, but definitely feels more professional and more just overall better experience for people when they look at me. They have a peace of mind knowing okay, this girl has a website, she posts on social media consistently, she is available to reach out. I can, write down my info on her inquiry forms. And so, I do it again in a heartbeat.
Got it. Yeah, I look at something like Amazon or like Google, if they have social media profiles and are super successful on those things, but if they didn't have some sort of centered site, that would also cause massive problems for their business.
Right.
When we think of Amazon, we go to Amazon.com. So not to say that a website is your whole thing, but you have social media, you have your website, and there are various other aspects as well. You have advertising, which, have you considered advertising? When do you plan to start approaching that?
I have. I actually am moving to Tahoe in the fall, and I plan on expanding my brand to that portion and that region as my priority. And so I know that breaking into the Las Vegas market was hard, but honestly, it is very unsaturated in Tahoe. And that sounds nice for most people, but in the photography industry, it's very hard to work in an unsaturated market as far as I've seen. I've been trying on my own with organic outreach and stuff like that to get into that scene, but I think that it's going to be a really, really good idea for me to start investing some money into ads when I move up there or as that date gets closer. Right.
So there are many approaches, and I just want to remind this point that all these things, all these approaches are tools for your company. So you've established a company. Okay, now we got our tools. Now let's see how to use that tool belt. You managed all your social media, but you leveraged some outsourcing for the other channels. And obviously, do you plan to do all of your advertising on your own? Do you plan to do any of it on your own?
I absolutely do not plan to do my own advertising. I am going into marketing in UNR in the fall. However, there's a reason why I'm trying to learn more about that. It's because I do not know enough about it. And so hopefully I can get a head start by learning from somebody else, or by even outsourcing that and learning my own analytics and things like that. But until I know more about it, I think it would be honestly a waste of money for me to do my own advertising.
Right. And that's been my viewpoint on that as well before in the past, because I just, I've taken multiple like Google Ads certification courses and all that stuff, and even after that, sometimes I was just lost about how do I make a graphic that's appealing to someone. So
you're pioneering for sure.
So it's definitely a something that you want to be able to get educated by other people on, especially if you want to take it all into your own hands. But also, outsourcing is leveraging, and that is such a powerful tool. You're always going to need to leverage.
Yeah.
You will not be one guy who suddenly, has wild success on this company values and company goals, unless if you're very specific to on your company goals to be a sole contractor that, super flexible and all that kind of stuff.
Well, even if you could, there's stuff behind that. There's a lot of work, and burnout is a real thing. Right. And for a one-man show, it doesn't last long.
Right. And even on that, if you want to have a site, okay, you got to be a site. Let's say you're a dietitian, right? You're going to have to build your site. You're going to have to make all your socials. You're going to have to manage your socials. You're going to have to do your ads. So
tell me about it.
Right. And this is part of that transition that you're talking about of you're starting to implement systems and you want to hire associate photographers, and that's becoming, working on your business instead of inside of it. And that's something that I talked to Kristen about last week.
Right.
This is really just becoming, a CEO rather than simply a photographer in your company. So, and that doesn't mean you can't work inside it as well. You obviously need to maintain the cash flow, but
right. Yeah.
I'd just like to go over a couple of stats, really, just to draw a couple of these points. Nearly 40% of small businesses in today's markets have no social media strategy, so they're kind of just throwing things out there, and 30% have no presence, whatsoever. And even with websites, I believe we saw a slideshow on this a couple weeks ago, but it was like 25% of companies don't have a site. And remember, these are the ones that have been digitally surveyed, right? So the people who are already, digitally active, who didn't take that step. There are so many family businesses still who do not have any sort of social media presence, and they were not part of these surveys and stuff. So that's important to remember. 93% of small businesses struggle with at least one aspect of social media, right? So that's an important point there. But yet, to ask the question, how many medium to large businesses lack knowledge on one aspect of social media, it's kind of just not a feasible question. Because these medium to large businesses have scaled their company. And obviously that's not the reason in itself, but in scaling their company, they have, they've hired out, they've hired in, maybe they've taken it all in, but what they've done is found certain social media strategies, found all these things, and now they're established. So it's important to remember that you're not going to become a medium to large size business if you're not utilizing your tools. If you're simply just a workhorse, that's not going to do a whole ton for you. 12 hours a day is much less effective than 2 people 6 hours a day. You can really then decide to prioritize and focus your time. That's also on the episode that I talked about last week, was mainly just how valuable is your time. And it's a really important question when you're diving into business, even if it's a career, even if it's just any personal endeavor. How valuable is your time? Make sure you're prioritizing each moment to be able to make the most of your time inside of your company, even if that's spending 3 hours one day planning out all your tasks. Now, obviously, you do have to, not just hit the drawing board, but also, get to work sometimes, and that's very important. But so many people overlook that. Just that planning portion. So that really is part of scaling. And social media and online presence is just a crucial factor to taking your small business to an Inc. 500 business, right? To a medium or large size business. So, and next on that, I just want to say, some people are very hesitant towards scaling their companies. But I would like to remind those people that if you do this in a holistic and sensible manner, then all it does is just scale your values. All you're doing is just growing your values, and you're not necessarily, you're not forsaking all these different things that people are worried about when they're scaling their business. It doesn't have to just be you. That is you growing your business successfully, is you scaling your values, bringing in other people to work for the same values as you. And that's really important. So scaling your company, is an important thing. And whether that means, you don't not have to be a super large company for your values to be super successful. But you do have to scale it outside of you and your family, right? And that doesn't mean employee-wise. You can be a family-run business, but you do have to scale your markets a bit out there and make sure that, and analyze your business, right? Make sure that you're doing these things so you're not defeating your values rather than growing them.
Yeah, I do want to say that when I first began the process of scaling my business, I was so wary of it. I was very nervous and scared, and I almost felt like it was a selfish thing to do because I am my brand. I absolutely believe that Kylee Joy, my face, is everywhere, and that is what I represent. Right. And so scaling my business, it was almost like investing in myself. And that felt super weird. And I don't know if that's a woman-owned business thing or if it's an every business thing, but I've heard a lot of other accounts of that with the other influential women in my life that I've talked to. Yeah. And so being able to break out of that and just understand that I was ready to take on more clients and that I was ready to scale and that I wanted that. That was a huge thing. And so before you scale, you have to make the decision on whether you want to stay a small business or whether you want to scale to a medium and large business.
Right. And like you're saying, it's not, it is an investment in yourself in some senses, but it's not, you're not just taking all your time and pushing you out there, right? This is your value as a company, is you've established more than just you.
Yes.
So yeah.
And by taking that time away from yourself, you're also investing in your whole life. Mm-hmm. There's nothing else that we have other than time. Right. And so when you're ready to give up some of that time and allow other people to take care of things for you and maybe even be willing to pay them for that, that is a trade that is worthwhile. Right.
And this isn't supposed to be a motivational quote or anything, but really take everything that you do to heart and try to do it to your best, because like you're saying, time is all we kind of have. So really just take everything you do. And that's just a word of advice from, the wisest people that I know, whether that be some of the older people or even some of the younger ones. Whatever it is, take it to be not successful in such a financial and all those types of senses, but really get clear with yourself and your goals and just pursue those hard. And do not forsake your own values in any part of that process. Otherwise, you're defeating the whole purpose. So, one of our closing questions here. How do you use your online presence currently, and what are some growth strategies that you're applying?
Okay, we definitely tapped on this a little bit earlier, but how do I use social medias? Yeah. Is the question? Yeah. Okay, wonderful. So right now I am part of that 93% that is just kind of having some small issues with it, and a part of that other percentage that definitely is just kind of throwing stuff into the wind. There's a lot that I have done that has worked, and there's a lot that I've done that has not worked and has failed incredibly, especially in the times where I thought it would do really well. But the main thing and the main change that I have seen the most growth from is just looking at how your things perform. I understand as creative businesses and as creatives, it's so easy to just post what you want and what you think looks good and what you think is going to work. However, when I took a step back and was like, okay, this is not even really what I do, but it has gotten me jobs on what I do. It was specifically one of my posts that I did for a series. I started a series called, I think it was like how posting every day until Sony comments on my videos. Yeah. And one of the videos that I posted got me like 400 followers, and it got 30,000 views, so many likes, and it was just a random picture that I had taken in Europe. Nothing wedding related, couple related, grad related, which is all the stuff that I do, but it got me all those followers, built a rep with my viewers, and I've seen people who have come up to me and been like, yeah, this is the video that I saw you from, basically. Somebody shared it with me, and then I realized you do weddings, and now I want you to do my wedding. Yeah. Things like that. So just watching what works and trying to replicate that, because it will only work for so long also. So when I found that success, I kept running with it, and finally Sony did comment on one of my videos, and that was actually one of the worst performing videos. Yeah. Which is, it's just funny the way that it works. And so kind of breaking out of that mental, I guess, shell of just like do what works and not necessarily what you want to do all the time. Right. But it's still showing off your work, and it is still building up what you have to do. And so if that means hiring somebody else to do your social media so you don't have to think about it, stress about it, or manage it, yeah, that might be worth it. Or if it means setting a bunch of alarms for the specific times of days that your post will get better engagement, that's just another trade-off that might be worth it for you and your brand.
Right. And that's such an important approach, I think. When preparing for a shoot, you don't build your own cameras and lenses, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's just my recommendation is, you're not a manufacturer, don't build your cameras. Yeah. And you can build a camera. I could give you a 500-hour course on how to buy all the right parts and then build a camera and then successfully test through and now have an actual product out of it. And was it cheaper? Some cases, right? If you got the right course, then maybe. But your value of your time was not probably spent the best, unless if you want to be a manufacturer. But obviously you want to be a company owner of a photography company. So what in my eyes that you would do is you would go to someone that, knows how to run those things. And that is just a great approach for social media growth and online presence growth. You're saying do what works, not what you want to do. Well, then the question would be, how do you know what works? And guess what? There are people that know what works better than I do, better than you do, right? Better than, all these things. So
always, in every facet.
Right. So this is where leverage becomes such a valuable, it's all throughout your business. I hear about so many influencers talk about, leverage and value over hours and, just what you think people might like. Totally.
And when you're able to give that up and just outsource those types of things, you get more time to become the expert in your field and in what you do. And when I started outsourcing other parts of my business, I was able to focus more on my photography techniques and just actually going out there and doing what I'm passionate about.
All right. Well, do you have any other closing statements?
No. Honestly, I think we covered it all.
All right, great. Yeah. So I just want to remind everyone, if you like any certain content, make sure to give me some feedback on that, right? Talking about those feedback loops, give me some feedback. Let me know what you like. And if any of you want to join Universal Method on our podcast, then go ahead and reach out on any social media. You can also reach out on my website, to email, whatever it might be. Just get in contact with me and we can definitely set anything up. Thank you for joining me today, Kylee.
Thank you.
All right, and have a good week, everyone.
Adios.